I added Tabasco to Wendy's chili and used to get second place in a chili cook-off. I mean, that's kind of genius, but it wasn't first place. Title basically says it all. This wasn't a professional organized competition. There was some BMX event with a couple hundred people, and they always have a chili cook-off. I'm not much for cooking, so I thought it would be funny to throw a bunch of Wendy's chili in a crock pot and see if anyone noticed. They didn't. I've been a vegetarian for roughly 12 years, so this was a long time ago. If I'm eating chili and I taste loogies in the chili, I'll notice it's from Wendy's. I think it's pretty funny, and I feel like I would have done something like that too, honestly. Might as well have just like cut off your own finger and throw it in the crock pot just to like spice things up. The real Wendy's seasoning for chili is your finger. I'm gonna try the same thing and bring it on Top Chef because this is just absolutely hilarious and genius to do. Saucy Squid War says, surprise, first place was Wendy's chili, no Tabasco. I mean, like, that does make sense because, like, why did you add Tabasco? Like, did you think, like, the only thing Wendy's chili needs is just a dash of Tabasco? Bam. With Objective says, reading the other comments, third place was probably Wendy's chili with grape jelly. I mean, like, the whole competition was probably people bringing like Wendy's chili in their crock pot with adding like a dash of something. Greg N commented saying, at our local VFW's chili cook-off a few years back, the scandal was that the winner's recipe was 11 cans of Hormel chili and 1 jar of grape jelly. Panties were bunched, rules were changed, but hot damn, that was some good chili. I kind of want to try that. I'm genuinely curious as to how that tastes. Mount Vernon West says, I use brown sugar to sweeten mine. I like it sweet and spicy. My wife took my chili to her work cook-off and won. I'm not a braggart. It's the only thing I can make well. And someone commented saying, this sounds like a travesty. Like I'm legitimately angry hearing that. Hormel chili looks and tastes like dog food. And adding jelly to that sounds like a thing that sociopaths do. Like imagine just like going on Reddit and getting like very angry because someone says they like Hormel chili. Like they're just they're just very mad at like just reading that. I don't know. Calm down, man. This kind of reminds me of the show Drake and Josh where they had a chili cook-off and they used the Peruvian puff pepper. And I feel like if you get the Wendy's chili and the Peruvian puff pepper, then you're set. If you were trying to win a Chili's cook-off, what 2 things would you combine? So this one is about an ignorant family, specifically the mom and dad, who are basic and white and have terrible views. But there's a twist. I kicked my son out of our house for being gay. He became an alcoholic and nearly drank himself to death. This was in 1991. My son was 18 and going to a local college. Me and my wife considered ourselves sort of a normal New Jersey Italian Catholic family. We were traditional and fairly ignorant to most things. We hated the perceived feminization of culture, images of drag queens in NYC, and AIDS, and the tight pants of modern kids that made us recoil in horror. My wife found gay porn magazines in my son's room. I came home to a poop storm. She was freaking out at him. I asked why, and she showed me what it was. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. It was like a punch to the gut. He was gay? It felt like the ultimate betrayal to us. Betraying our religion, betraying the normal, healthy upbringing we gave him. We had zero concept of the idea of being born gay. We thought it was something you made a choice to engage in. And once you did it, you couldn't stop. Everything we had given him, a normal, religious, traditional home with enough money to go to college and relative freedom to do what he wants. And he just threw it all away. At least, that is what I thought at the time. He was my only precious thing in the world, my son, the person who would inherit my family's name, the man who I raised from a child to be a man. But at the moment was the furthest thing from a man in my mind I could imagine. I made the choice right then and there that he was no son of mine. He was just a sissy wuss who happened to live in my house. I know how horrific this sounds because it was horrific, and it was how almost everyone who lived in our community felt. We were constantly spewed with propaganda to hate gay people and the ideas that the youth were all gay and experimenting and getting AIDS and dressing as women. The hair metal, men wearing makeup, David Bowie, the drag queens in New York across the Hudson, Freddie Mercury, the ridiculous clothing of the era. It all gave the world view that the world was turning to some gay, womanly wonderland. Anyways, I barely even spoke to him. My wife was the one who did all the yelling. I just went red in the face and couldn't even look at him. She told me to get the freak out and go to New York to live with his friends, who just assumed we're all gay. And she was right, mostly. She physically hit him a lot and got him to pack his stuff while he was crying and told him to get out. Me and my wife were just devastated afterwards. We went to church a lot. My wife told all the other families in the area, and they were horrified at my son. I remember when we told our priest, who was a very nice, accepting man, about our son, and he looked to be disgusted. But when we told him we kicked him out of the house, he looked at us with disgust, or at least hid it a tiny bit. Living without my son hurt. It also made me rethink things over time. I still saw him as an inhuman person. To be gay, to me at the time, was so sinful and horrific that it was impossible to truly consider accepting them as a real normal person. Me and my wife grew apart in the 6 months following my son leaving. She started to drink a lot, and she was a nasty drunk. She had a history of alcoholism. I knew how bad it could get. This was the worst I have ever seen her. We fought constantly over stupid things, and all I could think about at the time was that when our son was here, we never fought, and he always calmed us down. In the end, I got kicked out of our home. She just told me to leave. I moved to New York to live with my brother at Bay Ridge. We got divorced officially a few months later. She would die from liver failure 7 years later. I made the choice, a conscious choice, to find out where my son was. At that point in my life was just in shambles, and I was rethinking everything about how I viewed my religion, my life, and I was just so horribly depressed and lonely. Finding him was a nightmare itself. It took 2 weeks of calling homeless shelters and asking around at them if they had seen my son months ago. I finally found him in an apartment in Williamsburg. I saw him and apologized. I told him that I'm so sorry I kicked him out. Part of me was still in the same mindset as before. I was still a raging homophobe, but I tried to push that part away just to be with my son and ignore everything else. He was a severe alcoholic. My first thought when I saw him, sweaty and skinny and sickly looking, was AIDS. But no, it was alcoholism. It runs in the family. He said that it started soon after I kicked him out, and that he was horribly depressed and turned to drinking heavily. Even his roommates said it was a major problem. For the next 3 months, I spent a lot of time focusing on getting him clean. I met his friends, about half whom were gay, and worked together to help him. We went to a detox clinic. He went to rehab. We spent a lot of emotional days together. I didn't want to lose him, even though just a year before I was desperate to get rid of him. The thought of him dying right after this, because we kicked him out, was just too much to bear. I made the decision that if he died, I would probably commit suicide after, but he would get clean, then relapse 4 months later, then get clean again for 2 years, then relapse again. Then he quickly recovered, and he would never touch another drop again. Spending that time with my son and seeing how he lived, and more importantly, actually seeing how these gay men lived their lives, mostly completely normally, it completely changed me as a human being. In 1996, I went to my first Pride parade with my son to support him and his boyfriend at the time. I took a heavy interest in the LGBT community and with my son to visit his friends in AIDS clinics. If you were to have told me in 1991 that I would be going to an AIDS clinic with a drag queen and being friendly with everyone by 1997, I wouldn't believe you in the slightest. Anyways, this post has been days in the making. I love Reddit, even if I'm a bit old for it. Haha. I have told my story before to a journalist, and it was published. If you feel deja vu reading this, I would very much prefer if you didn't reveal my identity on this post or post the article. So I think it was kind of hypocritical to say that you gave him the relative freedom to do what he wants and gave him the best life, but he didn't have the freedom to be gay. That doesn't make any sense. The intro song for this is the one where Vladimir Putin is saying, "I am gay, gay, gay." I'm just going to stop right there on the song because it's pretty graphic. I do think that they did him a favor because they have probably no taste in good music or anything. So he was separated and brought back into like a really cool culture. But then again, he did resort to alcoholism when he should have really realized that his parents were pretty bland, as Gordon Ramsay would say. Do you think the son was too forgiving or forgave him pretty fast? Because, I mean, like, they kicked him out. And then, like, after years, he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm at the lowest of my life, so I'm going to come back." Like, no, you have to work for my forgiveness. If it was me, I would make my dad constantly listen to Freddie Mercury and David Bowie as a punishment since he hates them so much. The top comment by Wet Water. Wow, the water's wet. "I'm about the same age as your son. I grew up being told that if I turned out to be gay, I would be thrown out of the house and would be utterly disowned. My father frequently opined gays should be quarantined on an island and either nuked or allowed to die out. I frequently heard that being gay meant it was only a matter of time before you would get AIDS, skipping the whole HIV thing. I never came out to my family. Even today, they frequently make homophobic comments. My father still advocates quarantining gays. You grew and learned from your actions, from your son, and from shared experiences together. That's not something I can have with my parents, and at this stage of my life, I prefer to keep them ignorant. As they have gotten older, they have only become more intolerant, my father especially. I wish you and your son the best. I think the father kind of sounds like he's Hitler, trying to like quarantine people and like separate them. That's pretty. I would have just like came out to them no matter how much they hated me, but that's easier said than done. It's pretty common that usually if like a man hates gays so much and is really weird about it, he's usually gay himself and is in denial. But that's my opinion. A comment by Deleted said, "Would your mind have changed if your wife hadn't left you?" That's actually a really good question. If he hasn't had like a low in his life and got kicked out, would he have still like been with his wife and still had the same views and went to the same church and thought the same things? There's a comment that says, "Hey, I am asking out of curiosity. What are you guys doing now? How are you? And what did your son do after he got clean?" I'm not asking for details, but just an update, I guess. It looks like there really isn't an update from the person who wrote it, but that is a good question. And I wonder how they are doing now. Like, have they improved? What's going on? Does he still feel the same way? Is he now gay too? All right. Last but not least, the big question is, would you have forgiven your parents for disowning you on who you are? Well, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.